What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm super excited for this because I'm finally going to be starting on the rally car. It's been almost 2 years since I have worked on this thing or even really touched it other than moving it from a different state to another state to another state. So super excited to finally start on this thing and hopefully be doing an event in about 7 weeks from now. I'm going to give you guys a full update on where the car is because I know I did a lot of work that I didn't show in the videos. But before we do that, we kind of need to dig it out. There's car parts everywhere, all over it, from that Nissan that I was just working on. There's house stuff. I have been using this as a storage rack for all the trim for our house because we're in the middle of fixing everything in our house too. All the quarter round, just there's stuff everywhere on it. So it's turned into a shelf. There's even a whole bunch of stuff inside of it. So first things first, got to clean it off and start clearing it out, and then that way we can go over everything that we need to do as well as all the new stuff that we did to it a long time ago. Okay, now that we finally have some of this junk cleared out, there's still a decent amount in there. I'm gonna actually have to like vacuum the crap out of this thing and clean it because water was coming in. It sat outside for a while. I didn't really have the window rubber all the way sealed very well. It doesn't seal very well anyway because it's an old car. These weren't sealed either, so that's why there's Gorilla Tape on it. So yeah, we're gonna get into the things that I've changed in the car because obviously a lot's happened since the last video where we were kind of finishing up some of the stuff in the firewall and the tube front end stuff. Even a lot of stuff changed with the tube front end because that wasn't even completely done, and it's still not done, and a lot of it's going to change in the future. One thing that I just want to say, I love having the loft. It's kind of just a catch-all, so that's where I put all the trim. It's kind of like a future me's problem that I got to figure out eventually, but it's great to have that because I can just chuck that stuff out of the way and I don't have to worry about it. So we will start, I guess, in here. There's not that many differences inside of the cab right now. Really all I did was I changed this gusset. I didn't really like how the old one looked, so I chopped them out, put these in. I messed them up with the radius of the bend. They kind of ended up square, which is why they look like that. But I welded them in. I wasn't going to change it after I cut them out, weld the new ones in. I kind of added some of this fake carbon fiber stuff. Doesn't stick. The stuff that I bought sucked, so I'll eventually replace that. Yeah, I think everything inside of the car pretty much stayed the same. We do have a lot of work to do. We'll go over that in the future though. One thing I did do when I put the new roof on, so you can see I don't have a roof scoop anymore. That's another big thing. I did a better job of putting on a new skin. It's not great. You can see it like right there where it doesn't follow the curve. It's a lot better than it was because it was super bad. I didn't really body work it too much either, just enough to kind of hide some of the seams. But anyway, when I was welding that on, I left the seats in because I was lazy, didn't take them out. And a big chunk of slag fell, landed on the seat, very flammable seat, and it just went up just like that. So that's awesome. nice $800 seat that caught on fire. We're gonna have to try to get new pads for. Luckily, that was the portion that started on fire, was the portion that you can replace on both the bottom and the top cushion, which is good. It wasn't part of the actual foam part of the seat. Now moving on to the back of the car, there's a whole lot that I did back here. So I chopped the fenders. I really like the look of like WC cars where they have like the high fenders, but I didn't want to buy over fenders because I'm too cheap, and I'd rather spend more time, I guess. So I spent a lot of time doing this, and it really doesn't look that good. We'll see what it looks like eventually with a bumper on, but I raised the fender up, so essentially about 1.5 inches. So typically it would have been down to here, so you'd have like that much wheel gap. We'll see what it looks like when it's on. It took a lot of work. Honestly, I should have just kind of cut it all out, put wheel tubs in. It would have been so much easier than what I did, but I kind of just kept cutting, and I was like, got carried away as I did it. I was like, oh, we'll see what happens. But then I cut all of this sheet metal out. There was rust in the rear quarters, had to fix all of that. Ended up cutting all of this out because that's obviously not what it looks like from the factory. Normally you'd have vents right here. I'll put up some pictures that I think I have of what it looked like before and kind of all the stuff that I cut out, because obviously there was a lot. It is hard to tell because there's nothing there now, and it doesn't look factory by any means, but it doesn't look terrible because it is all painted. But yeah, all of that, pretty much completely flat trunk, which isn't necessarily a good thing because now the spare tires are going to sit higher. I kind of did this without thinking because obviously I did a lot of work back here, but I can't get the spare tires very far forward, which is kind of bad for weight distribution, and I effectively sealed off that portion of the vehicle, so I'm not really able to get at it without climbing through literally hoops, the main hoop. Kind of a pain. I don't know why I did it. I thought it looked cool, and it does tie into the subframe mounts, so here and here on both sides it does essentially lock in everything with the subframe as well as to the strut tower, so it should make it decently stiffer back here, but it really wasn't necessary and I shouldn't have done it. Or at least I should have done a better design than what I did, so I could have got the spare tires farther forward. One of the things that I am happy about having now, all these random hooks that I have every which way, I kind of laid everything out that you have to have in a rally car, and everything has its own place and a spot to strap it down, which is awesome because that was always a big problem with finding exactly like where to put the first aid kit, spill kit, tow rope, all that stuff. It all has a place in here. Not really the best place for weight distribution, but it's just convenient for kind of my class and the car that it is. And obviously, same thing on this side. The spare tires will sit right here. So that's what these are. These are mounts for the hooks that are going to hold on the ratchet straps. And then it ties into the bar. I can still get 2 spares if I really wanted in here. And it holds it super securely against the bar and straight down into the floor. I did do new brake lines everywhere. You can kind of see them. It's nice because they're all tube nuts now, made for a much cleaner install, not having to do any of the weird flares that you have to worry about. I mean, you still have to flare them, but it's a 37-degree flare, like an AN fitting rather than like a typical bubble flare or anything like that. Changed everything, so we have bulkhead connectors for the brake lines coming through the wheel well, and then it just picks up a -3 on that side, so it's more of a generic thing, but it is kind of a bad thing too because it's no longer a 10-1 thread pitch with like a bubble flare that you can get like at a hardware store, but I'll just have to show up with spares at a race. But it definitely made for a much cleaner install of the brake lines, especially kind of with the hydro. Kind of looks a little nicer with the tube nuts and everything like that. I did change where the fuel lines meet and go into the fuel tank. I just kind of chopped that up a little bit, got rid of that stupid box that I made down below it that was super restrictive and really hard to do the fuel lines. Made this to where it's a lot easier. There's no bulkhead connectors, so the grommets will just allow it to slide on it, and it's a lot easier to get those connections on and off inside of like the sending area. And then those go pretty much the same way along the cage to the driver's side footrest area and pass through the firewall through some bulkhead connectors. Now, obviously, we have a large mess of wiring. I just kind of chucked the wiring harness in here, so that way I wouldn't have to winch it onto a trailer when we moved. It does technically run how it is right now. It's just super hokey, and it needs a lot. we're in the middle of relocating the battery, got to do that. So that's why all this is in here. I'm going to redo all the auxiliary wiring with a new fuse box, everything like that. But I think that was pretty much it as far as in here, and I think we'll try to show you the front now. So this is all kind of back together, but not really. Really just temporarily thrown together so that I could drive it, like I was saying. Most of this was done on video, so if you watch those videos, the two front end was pretty much done. Here's the rest of the brake system. So we got rid of the booster. That is a Willwood dual reservoir master cylinder. So technically there's two cylinders inside of there that are completely separate, which is nice because if I ever lose a brake line or anything like that on the rear or the front, it has completely independent cylinders inside. So that way I'll still have half my brakes type of thing. All master cylinders are like that technically on the road because they have to be. But most of them are going to have a combined reservoir in the top. So even though you use it a few times and you can still stop type of thing, you can panic stop, you're still gonna be losing fluid. And then eventually once you lose all the fluid in there, you're gonna have no brakes no matter what. This one is different because it has two different reservoirs. There's only one up there right now. I don't know why. I guess I don't have the second one in there right now. But it'll be nice because, like I said, I'll still have half the brakes when that comes to a panic stop if I rip a brake line out like I did at Sandblast. I did redo some of this wiring harness all in here. I gutted most of the wires out that come forward of the fuse box. I also relocated where the bulkhead wiring goes through. So all of it goes through where the old fuel lines used to go. You can't really see it, but it's tucked behind the master cylinder. That gets it out of the wheel well where it used to go because it used to be right here, which could lead to a pretty bad failure if you get a flat, you debeat your tire or something like that. As it starts to delaminate, it's gonna throw retread everywhere essentially and destroy your wiring harness. So at least this way it's protected. I still got to figure out a place to mount the actual fuse box though. So yeah, a lot of work has been done to the car. Fortunately, I lost all that footage, had a hard drive problem, and lost a good probably 20 videos worth, which would have been great to get out because it would have given me something to do for my channel, so it wouldn't have completely died out. And it would have been nice to get all that information out if someone else was interested in doing kind of the same stuff, as far as like rust repair and things like that on a car, that it doesn't necessarily matter too much how well it looks. But even though there was a lot done, the list to get this thing ready to race is immense. We have so much to do. Obviously you can see there's a lot of half finished stuff. So the list is pretty long. There's been some rule changes as far as safety stuff with ARA that we got to change and add to the car. So there's just a lot of things that we're going to have to do to get this thing up to spec and even just back on the road. So the first thing that we're going to start doing is new battery. So we started doing a battery relocation. Got to do a battery box, got to do all the terminals for that. Got to get that done. I changed some of the shifter linkage stuff to eliminate some of the weak points that I saw with the factory design. I had just had some failures with it in the past and I kind of wanted to avoid it. So change the design, but it's going to involve a decent amount of fab work to get the shifter linkage to kind of work again. Should be fairly simple, just got to do it. And then once we do that, finish up all the wiring. So we're going to change up all the auxiliary wiring, tuck up all the harness, things like that, and hopefully get that thing good. So that way, technically it can be on the road and drive again, or at least move under its own power and it's not super awkward. Then we got a whole bunch of stuff to button up in the front. There's no cooling hooked up right now. The radiator's just kind of sitting there. The oil cooler's kind of sitting there. The lines are tight, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I got to do. So there's a bunch of stuff that we got to button up in the front end. We have to install a new fire suppression system because that's one of the big rule changes is there needs to be an onboard fire suppression system. So we got to plumb all of that. We got to mount it, run the activation cables, things like that. Then some stuff with the engine. We got to button up some of the intake stuff. We need a better system to not suck up water. More than likely this rally will have a water crossing or two, and I would prefer not to hydrolock the engine or get a lot of water inside of the car. So we got to waterproof the crap out of this thing and hopefully eliminate having that happen. Finish the wheel well liners, do underbody protection, make a new skid plate for it, new bars on the front end. Essentially the whole front end is going to be completely reworked if I have time. If not, we'll send it how it is, and then rework it in the future. So yeah, I've got a lot of work cut out for me. Unfortunately, it's going to be a lot to try to get done. Still got 2 more rallies that I gotta go work SDPR and LSPR for my job, so I can actually get some money to work on this thing. And that's effectively cutting down how much time I have to about 5 to 6 weeks, I believe, with the time that'll be gone for those. Anyway, I'm gonna end this video out. I need to stop rambling. One of these things that I need to do in the videos is stop talking so much. I know some of you guys like it, some of you guys get some benefit from it, but kind of cuts down on my work time. So I kind of need to streamline that process a little bit more. And I need to go pack because I have a flight in 9.5 hours to go to Pennsylvania for a rally with Subaru. So yeah, it's going to be an early morning and a late night packing and finishing all this up and getting it ready so that I can go with some peace of mind. So hopefully you guys stay tuned for the whole build. It's going to be a time crunch and it should be a lot of fun to get it done. I'm super excited. I haven't been motivated to like work on a car in a while and I finally have it again. But I'm super excited and I'll stop rambling now and I'll see you guys with the next video.